In his 2020 New Year's address, President David Granger outlined his coalition administration's strategy for rolling out a decade of development plan, which is going to begin this year. The plan envisages significant inputs from the private sector, the manufacturing sector, ICT and telecommunications sectors. And he articulated the 4 pillars of his administration's decade of development strategy, quote, to accelerate Guyana's transformation into 1, a green state, 2, a digital state, 3, a petroleum state, and 4, an education nation. Well, let us examine these 4 illusionary 4 pillars of the people who write Mr. Granger's speeches. The green state underpins him having a preference for the color green. He wears mostly green shirts. He has painted the presidential offices and the Main Street presidential premises green. So we have seen what his concept of green is. But in his New Year's presentation, Mr. Granger informed all of Guyana and the world that we, being on the threshold of being one of the biggest oil producers in this hemisphere, his government will embrace as its first transformative process the pursuit of the goal of Guyana becoming a green state, with official energies focused in the preservation and protection of the environment and the graduation towards greater value-added production. This is a very strange concept coming from him, since he and his government have done everything possibly wrong so far in government. Certainly not exploiting this oil for his citizens, since A, the negotiation has yielded the worst agreement possible with Exxon by obtaining a very low 2% royalty when the small neighbor Suriname has asked for and got nearly 6% from Total. B, getting a signing bonus of 18 million when neighboring Suriname just asked for and got 100 million. C, not getting Exxon to agree to contain any oil spills into the Caribbean Sea or indeed into Guyana's Atlantic coast. D, every nation on this planet considers that all Guyanese are idiots for allowing our government to make this ridiculous deal. I really don't want to hear how green we are going to be. These are lies and illusions of campaign promises and smoke and mirrors. And in this regard, Mr. David Granger has proved over time to be the biggest liar in politics for not keeping his promises. I saw how incompetent it was, and now I want red. I don't want green anymore. He promised a digital state. At this very moment, there is an advertising circulated on television and in the newspapers inviting all Guyanese to sign a petition against the very expensive but slow and unreliable internet services we have in this country. Due to a monopoly, which is over, but this lazy, incompetent, inactive government has done nothing in more than 4 years to liberalize the sector and let competition dominate the market. All we have gotten so far are excuses from the Ministry of Telecommunications about its inaction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 21st century and our internet services are available to only 37% of our population. Trinidad is boasting a penetration of 77%, Barbados 82%, Jamaica 49%. So forgive me for not believing that this government or Mr. Granger has the knowledge or the commitment or the competence to liberalize the sector for our benefit. 3, a petroleum state. This still remains to be seen, since Mr. Granger and his government have done nothing so far to assure me that we will be getting anything from this oil. Our being partners with Exxon does not fill me with any confidence that they will declare a profit and give us our share. Omai didn't. Barama didn't. Rosal doesn't. And I don't have any confidence that our revenue department has the capability or the capacity to understand the expenditures of Exxon, much less legislate to see that it will get half of the profits. It's amazing how timid bullies get when dealing with real talk. Today's Stabic News, for example, says that the lease of Phase 1 now stands at 3.5 billion US. What does this mean? Our national budget is around 300 billion Guyana dollars, or 1.405 billion US dollars. At 213.5 Guyana dollars to 1 US, this lease of 1 exploratory cost alone just the exploratory cost, ladies and gentlemen, can finance this entire country for 2.5 years. Now the leader of the opposition is saying that they were $1 billion short. That's 30%. They made a maybe 25% mistake and overcharged us. In the 30 years or so that Exxon agreement is expected to last, Ghana can lose $55 billion through these disastrous negotiations. I don't know which Guyanese would accept that 55 billion Guyana dollars, US dollars. So halfway through this comment, let me remind you again that Mr. Granger was saying that to help him, he is relying on the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, he can't be referring to the same private sector which will not offer him one vote, the same private sector which he has put Godfrey Station to extort money from, causing a contraction in our business sector and a loss of jobs. The same private sector he has now thrown 200 new taxes to further decimate them and to pile a mountain of red tape to get anything done in the past 4.5 years. Tax-centric governments like Burnham and Granger do not lead to prosperity of the private sector, but destroys private enterprise, and destroy it they have. In 2017, the IDB published a report telling us that, quote, the Inter-American Development Bank has found that private sector investment levels in Guyana are relatively low. Since when taken as a share of our GDP, it is only 8.3%. This compares unfavorably to the Latin America and the Caribbean regional average of 16%. Ladies and gentlemen, the Guyana private sector activity is 100% lower than the rest of the region. Think of how many jobs are lost if it were 16%. It would mean that there would be 100% more jobs than in the private sector than which they now employ. And all the Granger administration has done since assuming power is to contract the already embattled private sector activity with taxes, red tape, and corruption. But now, to get re-elected, to continue this vicious agenda against them, he is now promising to change his ways and be pro-business. I have no alternative but to declare that Mr. Granger is a liar. A recent IDB report in 2019 stated quite clearly that doing business in Guyana is riddled with problems. Kiana Wilborg reported in the April 23rd Kaicho News 2019 that the IDB said that 34.45% of the firms surveyed view corruption as a major obstacle to doing business in Guyana, while 43.7% consider it a very severe obstacle. Notwithstanding the claim that corruption is a major or severe obstacle, the IDB said that relatively small percentage of firms surveyed indicated that they were expected to pay a bribe to obtain an operating license, electrical connections, telephone connection, import license, water connection, and construction permits. Ladies and gentlemen, 78.2% of the businesses in this country surveyed stated that corruption was a major or severe problem in doing business here. Based on this survey, the bank said that approximately 6.7% of the firms indicated that they were also expected to pay bribes to obtain the contract, while 3.3% claimed that they were expected to pay a bribe to the GRA people. With regards to the high taxes, the IDB noted that firms ranked this as a significant obstacle to their operations. It said, indeed, tax rates were ranked third as the most serious obstacle after very high electricity costs, which was the first problem, and corruption, which was the second problem. And this may be attributed to the fact that Guyana has one of the highest corporate tax rates in Latin America and the Caribbean. Finally, the fourth pillar of Mr. Granger's 10-year state, it promises an education nation. Over the past 4.5 years, they have not done much to enhance education in this country. In fact, withdrawing some monetary benefits from the sector, he has made it more expensive. But now, to get re-elected, he is promising that the long-awaited acceleration of an advanced science and technology curriculum in our school system will become a reality. In fact, the imposition of taxes on the education system has been an impediment to its growth over the past 4.5 years. The PPP's 2020 manifesto tells us that they will take measures to enhance education by offering tax-free incentives to all private educational institutions, making the cost of fees less. In addition to the 16 other steps they will take to improve education in their manifesto.